Hello, I'm Alex Trainer, a terrestrial analyst with the Bureau of Land Management. Today I'll be presenting on advances in use-based monitoring data. I'd like to start by acknowledging and thanking the other authors, including Vincent Janssen, Jason Carl, and Jim Sprinkle from the University of Idaho, and Nika Liebeck, also from the BLM. As climate changes, we're likely to see an increase in variability in growing conditions, as well as the severity and frequency of drought events. Alongside this, we also face bias and variability in field-based observations of livestock use. Both these factors can cause significant challenges in the collection, interpretation, and application of use-based monitoring data for adaptive management of rangelands. In this presentation, I'll present several tools and approaches which address these challenges. I will focus on quality assurance methods for field measurements and incorporating geospatial tools and datasets. These ideas stem from ongoing projects at the Zumwalt Prairie Preserve in Northeast Oregon, managed by the Nature Conservancy, and the Rinka Rock Creek Ranch, University of Idaho Ranch in south central Idaho. We know that variability in field-based estimates, utilization, and residue are affected by factors not directly related to grazing intensity. These include training, professional experience, the location and intensity of measurements, the growing conditions, and the protocol used. From a variance decomposition study using data from the Zumwalt Prairie, we saw that not only did protocols give significantly different estimates of utilization, but they also had different amounts and sources of variability. For example, the landscape appearance protocol was useful at detecting different levels of grazing intensity, but was also the most susceptible to differences in observer experience. Understanding the causes of variability and bias can help to introduce quality assurance practices to prevent biases before they occur. This starts with selecting the protocol which is most appropriate given the experience and training of observers, the level of grazing intensity, the type, amount, and distribution of forage plants, as well as the resources and time available. We also saw from the Zumwalt study that we could improve accuracy and precision of utilization estimates by using quantitative protocols in conjunction with visual estimates, as well as by conducting site-specific crew calibration exercises in which each observer measured utilization in the same locations, compared and discussed their observations. We know that measuring utilization and residual biomass across large scales can be both costly and difficult. Remotely sensed data from satellites and GPS can add another line of evidence to both support and evaluate field-based measurements. Remote sensing-based vegetation mapping tools can provide interactive maps of above-ground herbaceous biomass or vegetation indicators across broad spatial and temporal scales. For example, RangeSat can provide estimates of change in biomass using satellite images before and after grazing events. One potential benefit of these tools and the underlying vegetation datasets is to review historical use data alongside climate and growing condition datasets to get a better idea of how the climate and livestock interact to better predict and adapt our future monitoring and management. This can also help us fine-tune and adapt our field-based monitoring locations. For example, adding additional key area sites in more vulnerable or higher value resource areas in dry years, or using maps of predicted use or past use to inform probabilistic sampling. Advances in GPS technology and reduced equipment costs now make it feasible to research livestock movements by tracking large proportions of livestock herds. Having accurate management records and these fine-scale stocking rate data make it possible to improve researchers' and producers' understanding of relationships between cattle behavior and movement and forage utilization. We can also use these low-cost GPS collars to gain better understanding of how well different field protocols and remotely sensed vegetation datasets reflect actual cattle locations. For example, in the Zumwalt Prairie study, we were able to compare GPS collar location data to field estimates of utilization from various protocols to evaluate their accuracy across a broad range of grazing intensities. Being able to understand and mitigate the effects of variability in growing conditions and field measurements gives us a clearer picture of how management actions and climate affect rangeland health. The final step for closing the loop of adaptive management comes from incorporating long-term datasets which describe the condition and trend of rangelands. Planning these two monitoring efforts in tangent and co-locating use monitoring and trend monitoring sites when possible can vastly improve our ability to study causal effects of changes to rangeland health in an objective and quantifiable way.